Hello everybody, I thought I'd have a look at this upload from Hamza's den where Hamza Mayat is abroad and provides Dawah to 2 tourists from the Netherlands. I will try and analyse the claims as best as possible with supporting evidence.
Sorry, everything is contingent. Yeah. Everything is contingent upon something else. By contingent, I mean it doesn't have to be the way it is, and it relies on something else and needs an explanation for its existence. Yeah. For there to be contingent things, there needs to be something necessary to be the cause of those contingent things. Yeah. Because if a contingent thing is dependent and made up of dependent things, it's not independent. So we need something independent that's not based upon something. Do you understand? Or you get the problem of infinite regression. Yeah. So when it comes to this necessary thing, because it's necessary things can only be one way and don't need an explanation.
Yeah, so there has to be something.
There has to be something. Yeah. So the question we need to ask, what is that something? Yeah. That's where we have to start. Yeah. Okay.
His first argument is the contingency argument. This is just another first cause argument. If he says the universe is dependent, then how do you determine that? We only have one universe, so we can't compare it to another one. Even if you can show the universe is contingent upon something else, how do you determine upon what it is dependent? It could be a multiverse, or just matter and energy. A theist would need to show why it's dependent on a god, and all attempts, including this one, haven't shown that.
Do you think science is a good way to gain information?
Probably, but also your chances, like if you can...
I think it is
you think
important
so? Shall I show you how weak science is?
Yeah, I know. I studied psychology.
Shall I show you how weak it is?
I know how weak it is, but I also know how strong it can be.
Well, let me show you how weak it is. I'm going to give you a story now, an analogy. Mm-hmm. Yeah? And you can only use science to answer the question.
Oh, okay.
Yeah? Yeah. All right. You're walking in the woods in Malaysia. And you come across a cottage, and you go in the cottage, and there's a kitchen, and on the kitchen there's a table, and on that table is a cake. Yeah. Using science, tell me who made the cake and why. What science can do is identify a cake. And basically see what it's made of. What it's constructed from, because this has been the result of heat and it's expanded, or whatever it may be.
So that's the science we use for our...
Science can only tell you what something is, not how it is and why it is.
This is a common example he uses. Firstly, nobody ever said science provides the answer to everything, but there are techniques such as forensic science which could help determine who made the cake, could look at fingerprints, etc. As to why the cake was made, we could ask the people who made it as the most reliable way to determine why. Science isn't the only route of knowledge, but a foundation of science is the most reliable route of knowledge.
No.
Agreed?
Yeah.
All right. So science is limited in what it can do. Now the second thing is, do you know who invented the scientific method?
There was no single person who invented the scientific method, but Aristotle in the 4th century BC set the groundwork for the development of modern science.
Ibn Haytham.
Oh no, I wouldn't.
He's a Muslim.
Okay.
And of course then Thomas Aquinas and whatever. Yeah. But it started with whom? Ibn Haytham, a Muslim. Okay. So from just this point alone, religion doesn't have a problem with science.
Hassan ibn Haytham was undoubtedly a great scientist, especially in the field of optics, but he was not the first. It's quite a jump to say religion has no problem with science using just this example alone.
No.
If you look at all the scientists of the past, it was theism. It was the belief in God that used science to try to understand what God has done.
Most scientists, as were most people, were religious in the past, but over time, with the weakening of religious institutions and better knowledge gained with smaller God of the Gaps arguments, the number of religious scientists has dwindled.
So science, I agree with you, it can be used to identify things, but it can't be used to understand the reasons how and why. So why the universe is here, how the universe is here, it can't give you the explanations.
It can't say how, but sometimes there is not a why question. Matter and energy may exist as a brute fact without needing a why explanation.
It can try to investigate the universe, what it is, what it's made up of, galaxies, this, that, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But it can't tell you its origination and its purpose.
How do you know the universe has a purpose? Maybe there isn't one.
So science ain't going to help us when we're trying to look at these kind of things.
Yeah, that's why
we need something extra. But I like science.
Yeah.
I like science. I'll explain why. Because it's true. We can look at science and we can utilize things. Now, have you ever heard of something called the design inference? All right. So what the design inference is how would you identify if something is a product of design or it's just natural?
Yeah.
There was a guy called Dembski. It's called Dembski's design inference. He was a mathematician, philosopher.
Yeah.
The Design Inference is a book written by William Dembski, a proponent of intelligent design. Here he is talking to another clueless creationist. The book has been reviewed negatively. In it, he introduces the concept of specified complexity, where he argues that it is impossible for specified and complex patterns to exist, formed by unguided processes, implying that there is some kind of guidance in their formation, suggesting intelligence. This concept is regarded as being unsound, and Dembski's work is criticized as being inconsistent and poor scholarship. The concept of specified complexity and inference design is just a rehash of the watchmaker analogy proposed by William Paley in 1802. In reality, we know that a watch is designed not because of its complexity, but because we have many examples of watches being designed and made. We do not have that for the natural world. A much better explanation for the complexity of the natural world is evolution by natural selection.
And he came up with a system to determine something was designed or not. And the first quality for something to be potentially the product of design is what's called contingency. You know we spoke about contingency? So what contingency means is it doesn't have to be this way, it could be another way.
Yeah.
Or it's not a result of natural regularity.
And how do you know if something is not the result of natural regularity? We've observed evolution. We know how natural processes create new species. And again, how do you know if something could be any other way?
So for example, you're walking in the beach, you see these glasses. Just for example, we're going to use Dembski's design inference on these glasses. Could these glasses have been another way? Did they have to be this way? Did they have to be black? Could they have been red? Could they have been star-shaped? They could have been, they could.
Yeah.
They could have been anything.
Yeah.
It just so happens they're this way.
Yeah.
Okay. So using Dembski's design inference, it passes test number 1. It's contingent. Okay. Test number 2, is it complex?
Complexity is a relative term, not an absolute term. Something is only complex or not when compared to something else.
So we look at it now again, yeah, it looks at a combination of different materials, seem to be molded, seems to have these little things here that seem to protect them, yeah? So you say, yeah, it's pretty complex. You're not expecting that going to form itself on a beach, agreed? So this ticks the box of design inference number 2. Third test is it specific to a purpose? Yeah, and yes, because the glass has got like this thing, so you can see, yeah, it's specific. So we can say, using Dembski's design inference, that this is product of design.
And here we have a classic example of the watchmaker argument. We know the glasses are designed because we have examples of glasses being designed and manufactured by people. We have no examples of glasses being formed by natural processes. Regarding the issue of whether something is specific to a purpose, a wing or an eye can be specific to a purpose, but we know how they evolve naturally. We can only infer if something is designed if it looks like something that we already know is designed. Take, for example, flint rock. This can be fashioned into various tools such as this arrowhead. We know this is designed, but flint can also have sharp edges occurring naturally. Any of these could be used as a hand axe without needing to be designed as a hand axe. So we may never know if any of these rocks was shaped this way deliberately or through natural processes.
Agreed?
Yeah.
Okay. We can use this for anything. Now, for example, a snowflake or a rock salt is very, very complex. It looks, the crystals and all that. But that would fail, number 1. Could it be any other way? No. Sodium and chloride make salt. That's what I was going to do.
We know both snowflakes and rock salt come in different forms, so his argument here is already a non-starter.
Now I'm going to bring the smoking gun now. DNA. Yeah?
Yeah.
Is DNA contingent?
Yeah.
Is it complex?
Yeah,
Yes.
definitely.
Is it specific?
Yes.
With purpose.
So it has a designer?
No, I demonstrated every single one of his premises is flawed, so therefore the conclusion is also flawed.
Now, let's say there's a creator. What qualities would this creator need to possess to create what's been created?
It's a very hard question.
Well, no. Well, do you know of anything powerful enough to create a universe, for example?
Yeah.
Do you know of anything?
No.
So it needs to be powerful.
Yeah, it needs to be very.
And if you look at what's within the universe, there must be some kind of intelligence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you look at the knowledge of the outcome, there must be knowledge. So we're already attributing these factors, right?
This is just the begging the question fallacy. He hasn't demonstrated how any of this is necessary, just stated it to conclude eventually that his deity is the reason.
And I'm basically writing a book at the moment based upon the idea of DNA and the DNA enigma, because it is the smoking gun for the evidence. Oh, where's the evidence?
Yeah.
Yeah. And just another little thing, just a little side swipe on science. Yeah. People who are atheists, they believe that they have this empirical evidence. You know,
We know it.
but the people who claim this haven't done any experiments.
No.
So where's the empirical evidence?
We don't need to repeat every experiment ourselves. We can accept the findings of other scientific experiments as long as they can be verified by qualified people. Then we can accept their results in a scientific sense, which is completely different to believing in something in a religious sense.
The whole philosophy of science is based upon something called the uniformity of nature. Yeah, uniformity of nature is the idea that the laws of the universe will act the same everywhere and at all times.
Yeah.
This is a belief. This is not proven. This can't be proven. It's axiomatic.
Oh, yeah.
So to be an atheist, you have to believe in scientism, and scientism is based upon a belief of uniformity of nature. So it's not as strong as it thinks it is.
Uniformity of nature allows us to try to predict based on what we know. If we can't, then we look further. It can be falsified if the results don't show what we expect. Also, we don't know all aspects of nature. For example, if we only know hydrogen as a gas, we can't predict how hydrogen acts inside Jupiter. The difference is that due to pressure, hydrogen is a liquid or solid inside Jupiter. We may have findings that we can't explain because we don't know all possible natural processes, but the solution is to research further.
Now the question I have to ask is this: if there is a creator, would you agree that it would be the source of supreme guidance and objective morality?
And now he has flip-flopped to another topic, the topic of morality, which I have covered in other videos. To answer his points, it does not necessarily follow that the creator, if there is one, would be the source of supreme guidance, as it may not care for its creations as much as the creations do for themselves. Also, the morality wouldn't be objective, as it would be the subjective morality of the creator.
What is it you think? Why do you not think God would know what's good, right or wrong for everyone?
Well, it's not like the big things like killing someone.
Okay, give me an example of something else then.
I think that in some ways there is a.
Give me an example.
Morality, and in some ways.
Give me an example where a universal morality wouldn't work.
A universal one?
Well, that's what objective morality is.
Yeah, okay, all the universal ones, because...
No.
Yeah,
Forget
okay, yeah.
Forget the known universal ones today. I'm talking about all morality.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So when something's wrong, it's wrong. So for example, this is maybe not the greatest example because sometimes this will get the backs of people who are not believers.
Yeah.
Drinking alcohol is wrong, and it should be wrong everywhere.
Okay.
Right? And that's what the creator says. Yeah? And the reason the creator says that because you can see the results of alcohol.
Yeah.
You can see the result of alcohol dependency, drunk drivers, the liver damage, the breakup of family, all of this kind of stuff is a result of alcohol. People lose their minds, all of these things.
Yeah.
If you can independently conclude from the reasons you gave that alcohol is bad, then you don't need a God to tell you. This is a microcosm of the Euthyphro dilemma. If something is right because God commanded it, then it's the divine command theory, and anything, including murder, would be right if God said so. If God commanded something is right for independent reasons, then God is not needed for morality.
See, if you think we came from animals, tell me how.
I don't know how.
But why do you believe we did that?
Because there is science on it.
What science?
The evolutionary theory.
What evolutionary theory?
The one from Darwin and stuff like that.
Oh, random mutation and all that. Why do you believe random mutation is a thing?
Because it has been studied.
It's not been proven.
It would be nigh on impossible to educate Hamza on evolution, but for anybody interested, there are many videos on YouTube that explain this in an easily comprehensible way.
If Darwin knew about DNA, he would never present evolution. DNA smashes the Darwinian evolution.
Anyone could be easily convinced that Hamza is deliberately trying to portray himself as science illiterate as possible. He doesn't back up this statement, and there is plenty of evidence for evolution in the DNA.
The only way we could get this information is if the God revealed the information.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah? Revealed the information.
Yeah.
There's no other way.
No.
So we don't assume these things. We're seeking revelation. Okay. Now God has chosen, from history what we've seen, men amongst us to be messengers of His. And throughout history you'll see many, many messengers making the claim that they're sent by God. The one who created everything has sent us guidance and tried to help us and show us what's right and what's wrong to benefit us in this life, really? How? So what you need to do is seek out the messengers. Now there's only one messenger in history of all the ones who claim to be messengers who claim to come for the whole world. Okay? So when I say messengers, I'm talking Muhammad, Jesus, Moses, Abraham, all of those people came for their own people. All of those prophets came for their own people, except one. And this was the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing be upon him.
Of all Hamza's dumb claims, and there are many, this has to be one of the dumbest. Of course, he only includes messengers from the Abrahamic religions because he can't look any further than that. Let's take his claim that Muhammad was the only messenger who claimed to be for all of humanity. Even if this was true, this doesn't mean that he was a true prophet. A quick search on Google brings up Rael, who was the founder of the Raelian movement, who stated that he was given a message by an alien and told that it was his mission to pass this message on to the people of Earth. Hamza is of course completely wrong again.
And he made a claim 1400 years ago that an angel came to him and told him he's a messenger of God to mankind. Yeah? 4 hypotheses as to what could explain that claim. So one would be our claim, the Muslim claim, that it's telling the truth, it's an angel and we believe that. All right. I'll give you the claim of the Christian and the 2 claims of the atheist. All right. So the first claim of the Christian is what? Satan pretended to be an angel. But the 2 atheists, because you're an atheist, you're an atheist.
I am.
Evolution. All right, anyway, the 2 atheist claims are this. And you'll know this as a psychologist, so I think you'll dismiss this one. He was suffering from mental illness because angels don't exist. This is an atheist claim. So angels don't exist. So anyone who claims an angel spoke to him and hearing voices, he's suffering from schizophrenia or some mental illness. All right? Could that be an explanation?
Yes, it could. I've done a video demonstrating how this is possible. As well, Abdullah's Samir and Gondal have done a whole series of videos showing this to be a very real possibility.
So the first thing we look, what's his character? Even from his enemies, he was known as what? The trusted one.
This area is outside of my area of expertise, but this video, again from the 2 Abdullahs, covers these areas which strongly suggest a personality cult. I will link it in the description.
Then when he's victorious, he doesn't go and take revenge on all his enemies.
Thank you, James and David. Let's get to the heart of the matter here. David says that Islam endorses continuous violent jihad against Christians until they convert or pay jizya. And once Christians are living under an Islamic state, they're constantly discriminated against. And according to David, that is persecution. Let me make this easy for you, David. Guilty as charged. Islam is expansionist. It does require expansionist jihad. And when Islam is in power, it does discriminate against non-Muslims. Guilty as charged.
The third point was, did he have the capacity to do what he's accused of doing?
Yeah.
Right. He was an illiterate man. Couldn't read or write. And he's produced the most miraculous linguistic book of all time.
That's just a subjective claim. It's like saying, my favourite book is my favourite book.
Now the question needs to be asked, how does an illiterate man do that? And when the Arabs, when they heard this poetry, which they called the Quran poetry, because it all rhymes, mashallah. When they heard this, they sent their best poets to go and listen to the Quran. Go and listen. Where's he getting its information? Where's he getting it from? Where's he getting it from? And when they returned, you know what they said? This is sorcery.
Now, in the next slide, we're going to find something interesting. We see something, and before we have Dr. Abbas explain it, in the first few chapters of the first Meccan faith of the Quran, we start off with the compositions being highly poetic, but then there's a trend. It starts getting less and less and less and less poetic and more prosaic. And when you get to Medina, it is so much more prosaic that scholars, Western scholars, I'm not going to name who, have told me, like leading experts, that it's almost like somebody else wrote the second half of the Quran. The way the literature, the way it comes out, it's like it's markedly different. Now, and one theory is that because of his epilepsy, when he started, it brought out his creativity, his rhyme, as we'll see in some cases coming up. But over time, with age on its own, and then his epilepsy worsening and not being treated, and his delusions worsening, his ability to rhyme was lost. And that's why the Quran, when he gets longer into Muhammad's life, it's more long-winded verses. It doesn't make as much poetic sense. It's harder to read, harder to understand. It's more concerned with laws and it's more meticulous details and stuff.
I have heard this from my friends, psychologists, that who were good in Arabic, but they were not Muslim, and also the Muslims, that they all kind of agreed that this is just very nice language. It is very nicely written, right, and so on. So then what you are seeing is that as he is getting worse, as time is passing by, right, you don't have that eloquent surahs of when he was in Mecca. There is more problems. It is destroying, it is causing more problem in the left temporal lobe. So he's not as eloquent. His vocabulary is not as good.
So a very interesting point he made there again. Another thing I'd like to add to it is, if the Quran's best and most poetic and beautiful parts were revealed in Mecca, and they were the first earlier surahs, why did the Meccans, who are these champions of recognizing Arab poetry, instead of seeing, oh my God, the Quran is such an amazing book, instead they said Muhammad is crazy? Why would they say that? If Quran's best parts resulted in Muhammad being labeled crazy, think about what it says about it.
But nobody accepting it for 13 years almost.
He had 100 followers, a couple hundred maximum, that he had to send to Abyssinia, half of them. It was only after, when he got to Medina, when he got political influence, that he gained followers. When he started exerting his military influence, Islam started spreading faster. Like his ability to exert political influence, that led to the growth of Islam in Medina versus Mecca, where he was rhyming with the best of his ability, with the best of the Quranic surahs, and yet he could only get 100 followers, right? So it just speaks that the Quranic literary argument, that it's some big book that was so impressive, the Meccans are falling on their faces over the poetic beauty of this book, doesn't make sense when they're calling you crazy for the exact same reason.
Yeah.
The issue of him being illiterate is not important, as most people at the time were. He could still remember and create and recite lines of poetry. What is much more extraordinary is the example of Stevie Wonder, who became a highly accomplished singer, songwriter, musician and record producer despite being blind from birth. In summary, he saved up all his Dawah points and spewed them out in a form of flawed Dawah diarrhea. I applaud the patience of these two to listen to him for 40 minutes. Thank you for watching, and please let me know what you think in the comments section.